Thank you, Linda. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure as always. And if you haven't ever been to one of Linda's live events, I strongly recommend that you do. They're just so much fun, and there's amazing energy that comes out of it. There's so many good speakers with very good knowledge that I always enjoy going to your events. So, and hopefully I can give back to the audience today some of that positivity that I've picked up from your prior events.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, we really appreciate that, Paul. We do enjoy hosting events very much. We've produced events in 14 states now, all across the country.
Wow.
Yes, we've met with thousands upon thousands of investors. Our Eventbrite statistics have us as having close to 30,000 registered attendees so far. And our database certainly proves that. We have over 200,000 investors in our database now, actively investing in real estate. And we're also hosting the LA Grand Expo with two other groups in Los Angeles. And we're planning on uniting close to 1,000 investors across the country. So it's our pleasure to produce live real estate events. And the reason is because you can get to know people like Paul in person and shake their hands and ask them questions. And we feel there's no better way to learning than live. But we're live here in this presentational webinar, so we'll go ahead and teach virtually for now. So Paul, we can go ahead and start your presentation at any moment. Let me know when you want me to go ahead and change the page.
Okay, thanks. I'll start off just with a little preface here. People often ask me, why should I learn about probate? Well, it gives you an advantage over the competition that doesn't understand probates. Probates are applicable everywhere because, unfortunately, like Benjamin Franklin once said, the only thing we're assured of in life are death and taxes. We're all going to pass someday, and so there's a constant stream of probate estates out there. Okay? It's also applicable in all market cycles, whether the market's going up, down, or sideways. Again, people are dying, and unfortunately, you're going to have, or fortunately for investors, people who know, unfortunately for the ones who pass away, there's always going to be properties available through probate. You don't need a whole lot of experience. That's why we're holding this webinar today. And I have a book that I'll be talking about a little later that is pretty much a guideline to understanding probates and utilizing the information that you can attain easily and cheaply from the courthouse to enhance your business. So let's start with the first slide, please.
One moment.
Unfortunately, I had technical problems on my side, so I had to put this responsibility on Linda.
Sorry about that, folks. We had a little technical difficulty. We're back on track. So let me go ahead and get the presentation rolling here. There we go. How's that?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. First off, let's start off, why do we need probate? A lot of people say, well, yeah, mom had a will or Uncle Bob had a will. Okay, that's fine. But the issue is, I'll step back for a second. As you all know, we're in the midst of a presidential campaign. And why is that? Because on January 20th, the law says that we are supposed to have a new president. And so if Mr. Biden were to try to do something on January 21st, it would be invalid because he doesn't have the authority to do presidential actions as of that date. We're going to have somebody else doing that. Okay. Same with essentially probate and trust. We'll get into trust right now. If somebody died, the who's in charge? If mom owns a piece of property, which is what we're talking about generally here, real estate, who can sign the deed to sell the property? She's no longer here. You say, well, I have a power of attorney. Well, legally, a power of attorney expires when the person dies because we don't know what their specific intentions are afterwards. And you might say, hey, I have a will. I can, use the will and go forward. Sure, you can, but you're going to have to go to court and get the court's authorization to proceed under that will. That's why most people write up trust. A trust, if drafted correctly, can usually avoid the court system. My mom died 16 years ago, but my 88-year-old dad, my brother and I helped him set up just in the last couple of weeks a trust. We tried to do it initially at the start of COVID, but trying to get witnesses and notarizations during COVID was next to impossible, as you might remember. So what happened was we finally did it again just a couple of weeks ago. So we're not going to have this problem when, dad passes on. Again, we have a trust set up, and the trust can avoid probate provided that everybody involved gets along and doesn't contest it. Sometimes people draft trust and one party doesn't like it. Mom wanted me to have the house, or she wanted me to have X amount of money. Okay. Even though the trust might say something different, if people object to that, they can go into court and fight it. So then the trust would have to be proven, so to say, in court. Same is true for probate. If you don't have a trust, you're going to have to go through probate because that's what the law says. And this is true in all states. 49 of the states, the only exception is Louisiana, follow English common law. And it's even in Louisiana, they have probates, and it's fairly parallel to what we do in the other 49 states with the English common law to handle the matters. Okay. So, as I said, a properly established trust will usually avoid the need for court action and achieve the transfer. Now you say, well, who has to approve it? If you're a real estate investor or knowledgeable in the field, there's like an extra governmental agency. Well, they're not governmental, but they might as well be, called the title company. You always have to have your title company to approve a transaction whenever you sell a property or buy a property, whatever. So that's usually the hang up that you need a trust for, and a properly constructed trust will avoid that. Or if you don't, you're going to have to go through probate and get the proper authorization from the court to proceed. Again, a will sounds pretty good. You know, most people have their wills witnessed. Okay, they provide two witnesses, and it's notarized in many, many cases. And you think, hey, that's good. I don't need to be concerned about it. Well, unfortunately, the law says that the will has to be acknowledged and approved by the court. And again, why? Because the court wants to make sure that everybody in the family is in agreement with what's going on with the will. Okay. I see countless cases where people are fighting. Oh, mom really wanted me to be the administrator. Oh, mom really wanted me to have the house, despite the fact that the will says something quite to the contrary. Okay. Next slide, please.
Okay, Paul.
Thank you. I'll talk right now a little bit about the court process. It's not overly difficult, but it's important to understand the general. You don't have to be an expert on this, but if you understand the general principles of probate, you're going to be so much of a better investor. Okay. Initially, the court will appoint a personal representative or administrator. Depends on the language in the particular entity. In Oregon, Nevada, where we do a lot of business, the administrator, the person in charge of the estate, is referred to as a personal representative. In California, you're an administrator. If there's a will and someone is following the terms of the will, you're an executor. You're executing the will. Okay. Again, don't get lost in the verbiage. You'll learn this stuff as you go along. I'm just highlighting it because sometimes people ask me, well, what's the difference between this and this? Really, there isn't much of a difference, but you know, it's very similar, the terminology. Okay. What if there is no will? In many, many cases, that's the situation. Somebody, I don't have a will. I know better. I don't have a will at this very moment. Okay. I know better. My brother will hate me forever if I passed today and he had to pick up the pieces for me. Anyway, if there's no will, the legal term is intestacy. There we go. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay. Next one after this. Thanks. There you go. We're perfect. Thank you. Okay. If there's no will, the legal term for this is called intestacy. Intestate, not interstate. Those are those red, white, and blue signs we see on the highway. No. Intestacy. Intestate. No will. Okay. There again, common law, we have a pattern. If I'll pick on the guys for a moment because I'm a guy. If a man dies and he has a spouse, the spouse has priority to be named administrator. If the spouse is also deceased, then one of the children, it doesn't necessarily have to be the oldest or the youngest or whoever picks lots. It's basically an agreement among the family as to who's going to be the administrator in charge of the estate. And oftentimes I see this all the time. They fight, oh, I want to be the administrator. Yeah, there's a little bit of a fee involved. What I tell people when they're butting heads with their siblings is, why don't you just be co-administrators? That way you can be sure that your position will be heard and you don't have to fight over the money. But, some people like to fight. It takes them 6 months, 12 months to get that little basic issue resolved. Silly but true. Okay, so going back, when somebody passes away, somebody in the family typically will file paperwork to start the probate process. In California, it's a standard form we use in all counties, and it's pretty easy to follow. In other states, they just draft up a relatively simple document, usually 2-3 pages, and it goes something like this. So-and-so died on such and such a date. There are XYZ family members, a spouse and children, or if the children are gone, grandchildren, okay? They owned a house, they had a bank account, they had retirement accounts, they had a boat, they had a car, motorcycle, whatever, gun collection, blah, 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 blah. We don't think there's too many bills, or there are some bills, we'll deal with it. And we'd like the court's blessing so we can start the process. Okay. Either way, it's simple. In California, it's a matter of check the boxes. It's really easy to follow. And, if you answer all the questions correctly and there's no objections, you're going to get appointed by the court. Okay, next slide, please. One thing people ask is, how long do probates take? Well, unfortunately, COVID and the post-COVID period has lengthened the process. If things are super clean, super easy, and they swim through, I used to tell people 6 months would be the quickest. It's more like 12 to 18 months. That's a more realistic answer to get through the probate courts. Why? Again, using California as an example, you have to file a petition initially to get appointed. Once that happens, then there's a creditor claim period. The decedent may have owed various people money, whether it's credit cards, a mortgage company, a car loan, medical bills. That's very typical. So when that happens, or because of that happening, the court offers the general public a 4-month creditor claim period. In Nevada, Oregon, it's typically 3 months, but whether it's 3 months or 4 months, the idea is there's a creditor claim period given to potential debtors of the decedent. Okay. Another thing that happens during this period, you're not just sitting there and waiting for this time period to elapse, but you're looking at filing the inventory. Okay. The administrator is responsible for gathering all the information on this. And I'm talking to, I talk to people about this every day. Gee, I didn't know that Dad had this account somewhere. I just got a quarterly statement yesterday in the mail, or they didn't realize there was an insurance policy and the insurance company wants to know where to send the proceeds check now that the person's deceased. Okay, so it takes time to come up with that. Sometimes people have gun collections, car collections. I had a case recently where the decedent was an author. So it was taking a lot of time to figure out the value of the intellectual property. How much is the books? Think about like Michael Jackson or Prince. They died and they went through probate here in the last few years. How much work did it take to figure out what Prince's musical catalog is worth, or Michael Jackson? That's a lot of work. It takes time. Most of us aren't that complicated, of course, but in those two cases, and I bring them up because they are probates, and if you want to see some of the details, you can Google it and get the information. It took quite a bit of time for the parties administering those respective estates to come up with that information. Most estates are relatively simple. there'll be a house, there'll be a car, you know, some dishes and some old furniture and that kind of stuff. And that's about it. Usually the furniture and the clothes and whatever gets given away or liquidated quickly at a couple of yard sales. But the house is typically the main asset of the estate. And that's where the administrator comes in. He or she would legally have the authorization from the court to proceed to liquidate the property. Again, it goes back to the basics. Why do we need to probate? Because you need legal authorization to proceed. Okay. And finally, after everything has been liquidated or resolved, again, this is in all states, you have a final petition. The attorney handling the estate will put together basically a summary. The person died, they had this, that, and the other. We sold these assets, we liquidated the stock account, and we have this to distribute amongst the heirs. And they're going to get XYZ amounts of money. Okay? So it's an orderly process. It takes several months, if not a year longer. You know, going back to the Michael Jackson or the Prince cases, those took several years because of the complexity involved. Nevertheless, they do get resolved and eventually get closed down. Next slide, please.
And Paul, just to let you know, I wasn't able to go full screen on it because then we end up having tech issues. So I'm doing it this way.
No, that's perfectly fine. Thank you. And no, we're doing well, and it's working just fine for me. Thank you. Okay. I want to step back for a minute from the probate process and talk about where a company like mine can help you out. Okay. During probate, you can't go to the bank and say, hey, I need money to fix up the house, or I need money for cash for keys, or to stop a foreclosure, whatever. We can do this kind of stuff. That's why we exist. Okay. I've handled so many different and interesting cases over time. It isn't funny. I think for investors, for real estate agents, these are some really key ways we can help you out. If you're an investor and you find a house, and this is very, very typical, you have one of the heirs, one of the children living in the property, and they can't afford it, but they don't have any money. You know, often these people are not the most energetic in the world. Mom and dad were taking care of them. And so you have to basically come up with a cash for keys. You need money to get them out. Fine. We do this all the time. We give people money so they can move out and help the house get sold in a timely fashion. Okay. You don't have to come up with that money out of your pocket. We can do it out of our pocket. Okay. I had a case last year. One of my attorney associates called up. We were one day away from losing a $2 million property. There was a wind farm out in Kern County on this property. And, you know, those big wind turbines? Yeah, one of those out there. This estate it was like a $12 million estate, which is still in process. But they were going to lose this property to tax foreclosure. The taxes hadn't been paid in like 5 years. So it took me about 6 hours, but I put the blasted deal together. And the next day, the last day we had, the sale was on a Monday in March, Kern County. You can look it up. Friday morning, late morning, we wire the money to Kern County Treasurer and save that property from foreclosure. So, yeah, cost a little bit of interest, but we saved a $2 million property from going to foreclosure on Monday. Okay. Other sources we can help with. I had an attorney call, and he's in this, he lives up in Big Bear or near Big Bear, and he had to evacuate earlier in the week because of the big fire up there. Anyway, he was calling and notified me. He's got a nice condo close to where my brother lives in Orange County, and it's going to sale next month. And he's all worried, like, oh my goodness, we don't have money and we're going to lose this property. It's like, it's okay. We can either finance enough money to reinstate the loan out of foreclosure, or just pay it off and get you out of foreclosure so you can sell the property in a orderly fashion. You don't have to worry about losing, several $100,000 in equity because you don't have the money right now to take care of this. Okay. So the point I'm getting to is we have a lot of flexibility as to how we can help investors, we can help real estate agents, we can help administrators come up with funds to take care of business. Okay. And if I can't, because we handle typically smaller transactions, I have friends who do this stuff, people I've known for years and years, former co-workers or attorneys, whatever. I have a good team of people that I work with, and I can refer you to get some help soon. Okay. Next page, please. Okay. Just to kind of highlight again here, principal uses of funds. Reinstate delinquent mortgages or taxes. I gave you a couple of instances there. Cash for keys. Again, a lot of these people lived with mom and dad, and life's expensive right now. I have two nieces with my brother's kids. They're good kids. They're college graduates. They're mid to late 20s. They're both working. One's an RN, making good money, but it's pretty darn expensive to go out there on your own and find a place, right? Well, you have those people, and then you got other people that don't necessarily have such good jobs, whatever. So they've been living at home, and then when mom or dad passes, guess what? They got problems, unfortunately. And the cash is centered on that property. They have to sell it. The family doesn't have a choice. So in many cases, these people need some money. I'm constantly giving people money to do this. Move out of the houses. How about making property repairs? I was talking to my brother the other day about my dad's place. That house is 101 years old, built in 1923. It's a nice old house. I grew up there, but when you sell it, it's going to need a good chunk of work to get up to market standards of 2024 or whenever. So a lot of people don't have the money to do that kind of stuff. We do. We can help you with that. And the other source of money, when you're not going to need this necessarily for yourself, but the people that you deal with out there in the real world, out there living in the probate properties, are going to need this. They're going to need money for utilities. I had numerous people. I had one in Pasadena 2 weeks ago. He came into the office. His electricity had been cut off because he's not working right now. He's a truck driver, but he moved back home to help mom and dad move on to the next life. And he just needed some money to pick himself up and get going again now that mom and dad are gone. So there's so many ways we can help people in this regard. Next slide, please. How can we help you? If you're a real estate agent, broker, we can pay you referral fees for these things. Okay. I have people referring me all the time. I had one yesterday who she gave me a case and I couldn't find it in my database. And I said, Jordan, I can't find this thing. I said, did we send you a letter? She says, no, my auntie referred me to you. She's a realtor. Oh, okay. I had missed that the first time I spoke to this lady. Okay, that's why. But yeah, we pay referral fees for that. Even if you're not an agent or a broker, if you're dealing with these probate cases in the future, we're happy to discuss this and give you a little money to help you take care of business. Why do we like probates? This is one of Linda's favorite subjects too, because you can get some real good bargains out there. One of the court rules for probate is that we have to establish a benchmark for the value of the properties. So do we use today's value? No. In probate, we use the date of death. Okay, so let's say somebody passed in 2020, right about the time COVID started, okay? Values have gone up in the last 4 years, let's say since COVID, about 30, 40, 50% nationwide or in most markets nationally. The market I was looking for recently probably gone up 40% since 2020. So sometimes if you realize that that number from 2020 or 2021 is a number that the probate estate's going to be working with, in many cases you can latch on to that price and pay something closer to that rather than today's price. Okay, that's the court monitors that, but sometimes, not always, they'll say, hey, the property is worth 500,000 and say 2021 it's worth 700 today. Well, as far as the court's concerned, they only are concerned with the 2021 value. So you can do that. You can strike a deal at that level and come up with a better price for you as an investor. Every now and then, I have someone that's in foreclosure with us, and we haven't done it yet, but we can entertain selling our position on a property. I have one right now in the Inland Empire in California. Property, according to auction.com, is probably worth 500,000. And there's a first of 165, and I'm in second for like 65. Somebody wants to talk to me about that, I'd be happy to entertain it. Also, as part of our process, we do a due diligence, on these things. So, I'm happy to share information with you and help you verify what's going on here. Okay, next slide, please. Sorry, these slides were made a long time ago, and I have to update the colors on these things because they're hard to say. As an investor, I refer to 3 ways that you can profit from these probate properties. The easiest and least capital intensive way to do so is through wholesaling the properties. I won't get into wholesaling too much right now, but essentially you're just getting the property under contract and then flipping the contract to somebody else. You don't necessarily have to take ownership of the property, but you tie it up and secure a better contract for you to make money on this. Okay. Obviously, you could retail flipping. I typically do that when I go out and invest in properties because that's how you can usually make the most money. You buy something at a discount, fix it up, and then sell it for whatever the retail market's going for right now. And as far as long-term investing, rentals are pretty awesome. They really are. And we can talk about one of those or those situations shortly when we get into the questions. I know Linda's gonna bring us some questions up in this regard, and I'm happy to answer it. So where we are. Okay, I think we're to the last slide now. So, okay, if you ever want to contact me, you can call up, or you can email me. That's probably the best way to do it. Just paul@approvedinheritancecash.com. approvedinheritancecash.com. Our phone, we have a website. You can look it up and get the number and call. But this would probably be a good time, Linda, to jump into your questions or answer any questions from our audience.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Paul. That was an amazing presentation. And I want to apologize for the technical difficulties we had. Unfortunately, whenever I shared the screen with, the full page, we came up with some tech issues. So I apologize for that. But I'm glad everything is coming along well. Does anybody have any questions? Please put them in the chat. We are here to answer any and all questions that you have. Okay, wonderful. We do have our first question. Number one, how does one go about finding a probate property? Great question. Paul, would you like to tackle that?
Sure. The quick answer is my book, Probate for Real Estate Investors. Actually, I have several chapters in the book about that. What a lot of people have done, and other companies like mine, because there are other companies, but we're the best, obviously. What some savvy investors do, and I've seen them in court when I go there, they go to the courthouse, they obtain the probate information directly from the court, and then they solicit a letter campaign to the powers that be, the administrators, the court-appointed people that will be in charge of the probate estates. Somebody has to sell these properties, and it's the administrators who are the quarterbacks of the process and are going to get it done. In the book, and again, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have afterwards too, but I talk about basically setting up a little program where you don't have to do it yourself. When you start off, you'll want to do it once or twice just to get the feel of it, but you can train a teenage son, child, college age student. That's what we do for our company. We have a series of basically college students that work part-time for us, and they go to the respective courthouses in the state, and they gather this information, and it's fairly simple. You look at a probate estate, like I said, California uses a standard 4-page form, and the information is pretty well laid out. It tells you the guesstimate as to how much the estate's worth, and then it gives you the names of all the relevant parties, the spouse or the children and so forth. Doesn't give you phone numbers usually, but it gives you addresses on all these parties. So the easiest and cleanest way to do this is to just go to these people or go to these courthouses, obtain the information, and then start your own letter campaign to do it. Sounds like a lot of work, but you know what? I figured out, and I talk about it in the book some, you train somebody to do this. I've done it myself numerous times. In about an hour of training, and I've done this out of state too. I've flown into Phoenix to the Maricopa Courthouse on Jackson Street in Phoenix. And within about an hour, I had everything figured out, how to use a completely different state's process and how to obtain the information we needed to solicit clients for our lending business. Okay. But what you're going to do, of course, is focus in on contacting the powers that be, the administrators. And sometimes you're going to find that um, mom and dad left, they had 2 or 3 properties. You'll see that they've left properties to, if you look at the will, you'll see that the will says this property goes to Susie, this one goes to Sam, and this one goes to Joe. So you just contact those people because they're going to receive that respective property from the probate estate, okay, or the trust. And once you do that, then you're dealing one-on-one with them. You don't have to deal with realtors. You don't have to deal with brokers. You catch them early, you can get some smoking deals that way before they hit the MLS.
And Paul, Vin would like to know, which branch of the courthouse do you find this information?
Okay. Most in California, and this is going to be true pretty much throughout the nation, they will have, if they don't have a specific probate court, in most large counties do have a specific probate court, it'll be under the family law court. Okay. So you're not looking for, obviously, for criminal, you're not looking for civil, typically not civil, not traffic court, of course. You'll be looking for either a probate court or, in other cases, a family court. A couple, I'll mention, like Imperial County. Years ago, they didn't have a probate court for whatever reason, probably a lack of funding. And I remember doing a case over there about 10 years ago, and it was just identified through the normal civil court procedures. But they have subsequently opened up a probate court now. So if you were to go to that particular county, you would find the information under the probate court database.
Wonderful. And I'm from Imperial County, by the way, so
I know that I didn't want to mention that, but I was thinking about you when you've told me that before. But that's a real life example of how, you know, the county, I guess, got more probates over time. So they had to open up their own probate court to handle the caseload. I remember it's real funny, that particular case. The person lived in Mecca. Not that that means a whole lot to you guys, but the property was like about 3 blocks inside of Imperial County line. But the initial party didn't want to mess with Imperial County because they lived in Riverside County. So they went to Indio and filed the case in Riverside County, trying to avoid the Imperial County jurisdiction. And somebody was fighting that, and they said, no, no, no. The property lies, and the decedent lived in Imperial County, so they got the court to drag it back into Imperial County. Just some of the funny stuff people fight over is just, I mean, that was legit as far as you're supposed to hold probate in the county in which the person lived. You know, they might have been visiting San Francisco on vacation, but if they lived in LA County, you would typically file the case in LA County. But there are some exceptions. But typically it's
now I want to make clear to everyone, because we do have people joining us from across the country. I want to make clear that the information that you're learning today can be applied across the board. There's courthouses in every county that have probate information. We do have people joining us from Florida, of course, from California. We have people joining us from Texas. So I want to make clear that what we're discussing today can be applied across the board. Correct, Paul?
absolutely. Myself, at my prior company or my current company have probably done probate transactions financing in about 25 states, including Texas, including Florida, South Carolina, Georgia, New York, Illinois, Michigan, uh, obviously California, Nevada, Oregon, Washington, uh, yeah, all over the place.
Wonderful.
So, and like I say, even though I refer to California this, California, it's not, it's just an example. I know California better, but I've seen many, many other states' procedures and policies, and it's very similar. You're not talking apples and oranges, you're talking apples and apples.
Now, one more question, and these are fantastic questions, folks. Thank you so much for being engaged with us this morning and asking such thoughtful questions. Um, Another question is there a limit to the number of probate documents that one can inspect? How big is the usual list?
That depends on the court. Most most California courts nowadays are available online. You don't have to go physically to the court. I'll tell you a funny story. Years ago, probably 12 years ago, I took the train down to San Diego one day because we were going to start doing business in San Diego County. So Mr. Smarty Pants gets there nice and early, and I start working through. And I said, "Can I have some files?" And they said, "Sure." They bought 50 files. And cool. I got through those 50 files in about an hour and a half. And I said, "Can I have some more files?" And they said, "Sorry, you're at your limit today." What? Yeah, we have a limit, 50 per person. Well, I had just passed some poor homeless people like a block away from the court. So I was tempted to go hire them and bring them in as my assistants so they could get 50 files apiece. I didn't do that, but I mean, there's clever ways you can get around this. And I thought that was pretty clever of me to think of that. So most courts do not have restrictions on that, but some do. But they're just a handful. I know, like Kern County in the past, they had like 10 per day or something. I had an associate who was a real good talker. He was able to get more out of the clerks, but it depended on whether the clerk liked his jokes or not. If they didn't, then he didn't get any more files than that. So, but the vast majority of courts are going to be unlimited, especially since it's online.
Wonderful. Well, folks, that would be the best way to go if I were doing this. I first zero in on the counties you want to work probate deals in and find out if you can get the information online so you don't even have to physically go to the court.
And again, if the listeners are having issues, let's say you're in XYZ County and you're having trouble locating the information, contact me. I'll be happy to spend a few minutes with you and see what we can do. I'll go online with you. We can be talking over the phone and say, "Okay, look at this, look at that," and see. Because I'm always interested in learning about the other areas too. If it's like a California area or Nevada or Oregon that I know, that'll be real simple to point you in the right direction. Even Arizona, I've been to the courts there in a couple of counties, and I can tell you how the procedure goes.
Now, I did type in Paul's 800 number in the chat. Feel free to contact him, folks. He's here to help our readers.
Please.
Paul,
Yeah,
Paul has joined us for the past 10 years at our events, and he's been a wealth of information, and he's here to help you navigate this process.
I enjoy it. One of the things, like I mentioned at the start, that I enjoy about Linda's process, her events, is that there are so many talented and diverse fields. I mean, there's not like 5 guys in probate and 3 guys in wholesaling. There's just a diverse field of people there. It's incredible. And there's just great synergy going there and talking to people and feeding off each other. It's really good. And I enjoy it myself. I want people to succeed. I'm a educator at heart. I wanted to, when I was younger, I wanted to get a PhD and be a history professor. And then I figured out it doesn't make a whole lot of money doing that. So I changed my direction of life. But that's still in my core, the educator in me. And I loved writing the book, and I love educating people on how to make money in this.
And may I add that Paul just closed on a oceanfront property recently, so he's definitely profiting from probate.
Oh, yes, thank you. Yeah,
Congratulations on that too, Paul. Very proud of you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, one thing I'll just say in passing, I love one of the particular niches of investing I love are tax deeds and tax liens. And I figured it out at one morning. It was about 1:30 in the morning. I was up looking through the online list, and the sale was going to start online at 8 o'clock that morning. And I was going through and I saw one list. There were like 50 properties listed on this page, liens, tax liens, and there were only 2 bids. And when I went to look at the first one, something said, I got to look at this. Why are people just bidding on these 2? Well, the first one was a probate. Duh. The guy's dead. That's why he can't pay the taxes. Hello. So he wasn't going to redeem that one. And the other one was a trust. Well, what does a trust say? Essentially, somebody's preparing for the future, like not being there. So, and actually, I did get those 2 liens. And my very first property that I picked up, my investment property, was one of those that I was just talking about. And over time, I've done well. And yeah, thank goodness I was able to, with my girlfriend, we were able to get a nice property last month on the water in California.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. And that's what real estate can do for you folks. Let me tell you.
Yeah, that was only a dream a few years ago, but the dream is real now.
It certainly is. Now, I did mention to a few people that, folks, every home that we have lived in, going on our 3rd house now, has been a probate. Every single one of them. We didn't go to the courthouse to find them. We actually found them on the MLS. So yes, probate properties do hit the multiple listing service. And I want to discuss that a little bit. And also, if you're truly interested in probates, there are agents and brokers and wholesalers even that cater to this niche. So let's discuss this a little bit, Paul.
Sure. One of the nice things about probate properties, okay, I'm also an investor. I 9 to 5, I'm at the desk working with my partners for AIC. Excuse me. After that, I'm an investor. I'm always looking for deals. One of the good things about probate properties in many, many cases is that you can get them as is. Now, my philosophy is this: why do I want to pay somebody else retail for them doing the work when I don't mind doing some work myself and get a good deal? For example, the property that I was just referring to and Linda brought up, it's on the water. It's in Ventura County. It was a trust sale. These people had the urgency to sell this property. There were 6 trust beneficiaries, and apparently more than one of them needed money in a hurry. This is how silly it was. Okay, you tell me if it wasn't silly. They listed the property on Friday. They had an open house on Saturday and Sunday. Fortunately, we were up in the area looking at properties, so we saw this property both Saturday and Sunday. We wrote an offer. They reviewed the offers Monday night and accepted our offer Monday night. Okay, how did I get this? We were told we were the lowest of the three offers, but I put a good down payment on it, so they figured correctly that we'd be able to qualify for the loan. The appraisal, the property came in $175,000 over purchase price. So we basically got $175,000 of equity given to us through this trust sale, because these people had the urgency, the immediate need to dump the property. And thank goodness we were in the right place at the right time and were able to do this. Okay. That, even though it was through the MLS, even though it was on the retail market, we still got $175,000 discount on this property. Not bad for a day's work, huh?
Absolutely. That was incredible. Now, Paul, can you talk a little bit about the difference between a trust and a probate?
Sure. If I mentioned earlier about my 88-year-old dad, we just set up his trust in the last couple of weeks here. Okay. If you have time and the ability, if you set this up first, initially, what you can do is avoid probate. Trusts are good, but this is like planning. Okay, you can't do this after somebody's, on oxygen in the hospital or whatever. You have to be able to do it ahead of time while they're coherent and able to make their own decisions. So that part's really good. If you don't, then you're subject to whatever happens, whether the person dies intestate or they have a will, and then you have to go through the probate. So essentially, if you can plan ahead of time and set up a proper trust, you can avoid probate, and that's good.
A revocable trust? A living
Yes,
trust?
a revocable trust. I've been told, I'm not an attorney, but I deal with them all day long. I've been told that an irrevocable trust triggers tax issues, like right away. You have to deal with that.
Okay.
One of the attorneys in our office told me that a few weeks ago. So you would set up a revocable trust, and then that way you don't have any tax responsibilities right now. And one of the good things about probate and trust is that under current federal law, I think it's over $6 million now. If the trust and probate do not exceed $6 million, you don't have taxes.
Okay.
But you have to know what you're doing, because you can incur, if you wait, somebody dies today and you wait more than a year, you incur capital gains tax on the property. So once you're forced into action, you need to move quickly.
Wonderful. Well, we're past the 11 o'clock hour, folks. It's been more than an hour already. Can we answer any other questions for you about probates? Now is the time to ask it. Also want to mention that our next live in-person event is October 26th in Los Angeles for the 5th annual Los Angeles Real Estate Grand Expo. We had over 800 investors from around the country last year, folks. We definitely are going to be bringing in hundreds of investors once again. Let me go ahead and type in our website, realty411.com. You can find all the information about our events, including the October event, on our website. Paul, is there anything that you would like to say or discuss before we leave?
Sure, I got to throw one more plug, right?
Yes.
I have my little book here, Probate for Real Estate Investors. Linda asked me to offer our viewership today a discount. I'll be happy to do it. I normally sell that for $20. I've been in the field for 27 years, so that's what, like 70 cents a year of my expertise. Anyway, today I'd be happy to give it to you for $15, give you a 25% discount. You need to contact me directly. You can get it through Amazon, but if you contact me directly, I'll give you the discount and I'll give you the coaching that you need to get this done. Okay. I'm happy to answer questions and guide people. I've had people that have contacted us through your prior events, Linda, and I've given them a lot of insights and abilities to make things happen. So I'm always happy to do that for your students and
Thank you.
continue to do so.
Thank you. Thank you. So,
Thank
folks,
you.
thank you. We hope that we helped demystify investing in probates for you, and we provided some knowledge and education that you can utilize. Remember, you can do your homework, visit the county courthouse, pull some information, and contact the people directly that are inheriting these properties and do deals with them directly. Do you find that's easy to do once you locate the information, Paul? Are they receptive to speaking with you?
Some are.
Okay.
Um, I don't do too much of it like locally because I consider that a conflict of interest with my partners.
Okay.
But like I said, I do a lot of like investing in Arizona. And yeah, when I see an estate or a trust, I'm focused on that, laser focused, because those are good deals. And I've done a couple, my two best deals. My best deal in Arizona, I made, and I'm not bragging, I'm just saying that this is possible. I made nearly $400,000 profit on one deal. Okay. So
Very nice.
yeah, you can do some good. That's how I got my house in Ventura. You know, I needed that money and more. But yeah, there's some good money to be made out there. And this is by, attacking basically estate and probates, this trust and probates, excuse me.
And even once they hit the MLS, folks, generally probate deals, they cost less money than typical regular deals. And that's because they generally need a lot more work.
Yeah, you have more room to negotiate. If somebody, I see deals like this all the time. Flippers will buy a property. My girlfriend and I, we were looking at the property, in the area we bought. Somebody buy a property for like $1.5 million, and they put $200,000 into the property, and then they try to get $2.5 million. Well, guess what? If the comps are only $1.9 million, you're not going to get that. And sometimes people, you can tell flippers who pay too much for the properties and then they put too much into it, they're losing money on these things. But if you get something out of a probate transaction, a trust transaction that's as is, you're not overpaying. You have the possibility to get a really good deal, like Linda has, like I did, because you're taking it as is. Yeah, I got some work to do on my place, but $25,000-$30,000, we're gonna have it up to, I got $175,000 discount according to the appraisal done by the lender. Okay, if it takes me $25,000 or $30,000 to make it pretty and beautiful, I'm still up $150,000. Not bad for a day's work.
Absolutely. And that's why probates can be so lucrative and, very profitable. So I want to thank Paul for his knowledge and insight today. I also want to thank all of us who are joining us this morning to learn more about the lucrative niche of probate investing. We promise we will do another segment with Paul very soon, and perhaps we can dive into more complicated probate concepts later in the next one,
Absolutely.
Paul.
Love to do
Okay.
it. Thank you.
Thank you. Want to thank everyone for joining us. Visit Realty 411 for more information, especially about our live event, October 26th. You don't want to miss it. Thank you so much, folks. Have a
Thank you.
wonderful weekend.
Bye-bye now.
Bye bye, everyone. Thank you.